Hi, welcome to Oxford Analytica's video briefing. I'm Chris Oates, North America analyst, joined by Benjamin Charlton, Asia Pacific analyst, and we're here to talk about Japan today. Japan has recently fallen into a recession again, and almost immediately after, Prime Minister Shinzo Abe called for a snap election campaign, which we're currently in the middle of. So, Benjamin, let's start with the economy. Why did Japan fall into a recession in the past couple quarters?
Well, the main reason is to do with the sales tax rise last April. Very controversial policy, necessary to get Japan's fiscal situation under control. But the negative impact on economic growth has been much greater than anybody expected. There's two parts to that, really. The first is a sort of correction. Before the sales tax rose, a lot of households brought forward purchases before prices rose. And then there's a kind of compensatory lull after that. So you'd kind of expect consumption to fall, as indeed it did. On the other hand, you have a slightly more lasting result, which is purchasing power. So prices rise faster than wages. The labour market shows some mildly positive trends, but real wages have not grown. Therefore, people can't spend. Therefore, you have this slowdown.
And we know that Prime Minister Abe has delayed the next sales tax hike. And what do you think some of the impacts of that are going to be?
The consensus is that that was necessary. The challenge Abe is facing really is a familiar one of austerity versus growth. On the one hand, you could raise taxes to close the fiscal gap. The result will be, in the short term, slower growth. On the other hand, you could hold off the tax rise for now. You could nurture growth and then hope that as a result of that growth, fiscal revenue is going to grow and you can sort of grow yourself out of your fiscal problem. Faced with this decision, the overwhelming majority of constituencies in Japan really were in favour of delaying the tax hike, particularly after the recession, as you say. Abe himself is in favour, the party is in favour, the public is in favour, and most expert advisors to the government in Japan are in favour as well.
And what can we expect from the Japanese economy in the months to come? I know there was some very positive data that recently came out.
Well, the trade data, the latest trade data is very positive, really. This is one of the results of Abenomics. It's the sort of unspoken element of quantitative easing. The sort of main public rationale with QE is that you're instilling inflationary expectations, but of course at the same time that is suppressing the value of the currency, making exports more competitive. So you'd expect that to feed through into the export data. We're now starting to see that. It's taken longer than it has historically when this kind of thing has been tried before, but that's partly not Japan. That's partly the main export markets have themselves been slow. Having said that, there's only so much that exports on their own can do. The Japanese economy is really it's not South Korea. It's not an export-driven economy. The domestic consumption is the main driver of growth, and they've really got to get that going if they want to make growth sustainable.
Now, as they're trying to recapture growth, there is an election happening. And usually an election, just as you're entering a recession, is not very good for the incumbent. What do you see the prospects for Prime Minister Abe?
Well, the prospects for Prime Minister Abe are very, very good. The opposition parties are in complete disarray. They've been back-footed by this. One of the opposition parties has collapsed already. So Abe is not really taking much of a risk. In a sense, he may be deliberately combining this decision with the decision to defer the sales tax hike because he knows that'll be popular. He's given that as the kind of rationale for his decision. He's framing the election as the need to get a mandate from the people to go ahead with this because it's, in theory, quite controversial. There's something a bit kind of suspicious about that explanation. The first is that the public is overwhelmingly and unambiguously in favour of deferring the tax hike, so he doesn't need to go to the people to get their endorsement. That he already has it. That's obvious. The other thing is that the opposition parties also agree that it's necessary. So whoever you vote for, you're voting in favour of deferring the tax hike.
So why did he call an election then? What's the purpose for him?
Well, I think tactically it's really about extending his term. He's still 2 years into his term. He's exceptionally popular for a Japanese Prime Minister. But over the next 2 years, before the next election would have been necessary, that might change. So he's making the most of the popularity he does have in order, in effect, to extend his term by another 2 years.
Well, thank you for that. It's one of the largest economies in the world and one of the largest democracies in the world. So it's very important, and we're going to be following that important story with the Oxford Analytica Daily Brief every day. For more on this or anything else with the global political economy, please check in or contact us. Thank you very much.